Hi, welcome back, and today we're going to discuss about declaration of nullity of marriage and annulment. So ano ba ang pinagkaiba ng annulment at declaration of nullity of marriage? Well, unang-una, magkaiba ang grounds na ginagamit or applicable sa bawat isa. Okay? When you say annulment, it refers to an action to invalidate a marriage that is voidable. So, when you say voidable, valid siya nung una, but there's a ground to have it declared void. Alright? So, certain grounds. And when you say declaration of nullity of marriage naman, it means there is a void marriage. It only applies to void marriage. So, as distinguished from annulment na nag-a-apply sa voidable marriages, itong declaration of nullity of marriage, this applies to void marriages. So, anong pinagkaiba niyan? Alright? Ang voidable, valid until declared void by the court. Okay? Valid siya, ngunit merong ground to have it declared void. Ang void marriage is talagang void, no? You know, it is contrary to public morals, public policy, and the like. So, another difference is, pag sinabi mong annulment, it cuts the marital ties at the time the decree becomes final. Alright? So, para mas clear sa inyo, let's use this ruler. So, for example, dito kinasal, okay? Kinasal, day 1. Alright? Umandar yung panahon. At this point, nag-file ng annulment. Okay? And then at this point, nag-issue yung court ng annulment decree and the decree became final. So, kapag annulment, itong period na to, valid yung kasal. It only ends from the time the decree of annulment becomes final. Here. Now, as distinguished naman from a void marriage, that is declared void by the court. So, for example, dito, nagsimula yung marriage, di ba? Okay, nagsama ng sandali, and then nag-file ng petition for nullity of declaration of nullity of marriage. Here, pag ito mag-grant, yung decree of nullity retroacts from the very beginning. See? Kasi void nga ang marriage, as if walang kasal na nangyari, as if walang pag-aasawang nangyari. It is declared void ab initio. So, void from the very beginning. Now, isa pa. When a marriage is annulled, anong epekto sa mga bata? Ang effect niya sa mga bata is they will remain legitimate. Okay? So, bakit ba importante ito? So, importante ito when it comes to succession. Pagdating sa manahan, diba, may distinction kasi yung batas natin with regard to legitimate and illegitimate children. Now, doon naman sa void marriages, yung subject to declaration of nullity, except for 2 grounds, the children will become illegitimate. Kasi nga, di ba, void eh. It's as if a marriage did not occur or did not happen. So, magiging illegitimate yung mga bata. Except if the ground for the declaration of nullity was for 1, psychological incapacity, or 2, pag hindi na-register, hindi na pa-register yung decree of nullity ng previous marriage at nag-asawa kagad. Yun lang. That's the only time that the children will remain legitimate. All other grounds, kapag dineclare na void ang marriage, the children become illegitimate. Ano ba yung grounds ng annulment? Okay? Ito muna. Annulment. Okay? Annul. Hindi po annul. Annulment. See? Annulment. Right? Kasi merong Iba kasi natatanong kung pwede ba sila magpa... Iba ho yan eh. Iba yan, hindi namin ginagawa yan. So, sa iba na lang kayo mauna kung yan ang gusto nyo. Pero kami, yan. Right? See the difference? Annul. Anal. Yan. Right? So again, let's go back. Okay, grounds for annulment. Okay, number 1, lack of parental consent. Okay, napag-usapan natin last video natin, last episode. Ay, basta yung last episode on marriage, na you need parental consent pag you are not more than 21 years old. Okay? Kailangan pumahayag yung magulang mo. Ngayon, kung nagpumilit ka pa rin magpakasal at nakalusot ka, nakasal ka, well, voidable yung marriage mo, and ito ay pwedeng ipa-anal. Pero, may prescription yan. May prescriptive period. So, kung napanood nyo rin yung previous video natin on sa utang-utang, alam nyo na kung ano ibig sabihin ng prescription. Di ba? So, kailan nagpe-prescribe ang action to file an annulment based on minority or based on lack of parental consent? That action must be filed within 5 years after reaching the age of 21. So, next. Ano pa ang next ground for annulment? Okay, either or both parties were of unsound mind during the marriage. Okay. Kinasal. Yung isa ay medyo may tililing o pareho pala yung kinasal may tililing. That is voidable. Bakit? Kasi if you are of unsound mind, okay, may defect yung consent. May defect yung consent mo, yung pagpayag mo sa marriage. Eh di ba importante nga sa marriage, so pag-aasawa, sa pagpapakasal, importante yung consent. So how can you give your consent kung medyo may problema ka rito? Well, next is fraud. Panlilin lang. Okay? Fraud sa pagpapakasal is a ground for annulment. Ano ba yung examples ng fraud ayon sa batas? Okay. Kapag kinonceal mo or one of the parties concealed the fact that he was convicted of a crime involving moral turpitude. Okay. So, dapat di ba mag-aasawa, open kayo sa isa't isa? Eh, ikaw ito, siyempre, papogi points, ikaw pala yung na-convict noon ng isang crime involving moral turpitude. Hindi lang ordinary crime to, ha. It involves moral turpitude. Eh, itinago mo. Kasi ayaw mong malaman sa future spouse mo. Yan, that is considered fraud. Okay? What else is considered fraud? Now, for example, yung wife. Eh, nung time na ikinasal pala, eh, buntis na. Pero, hindi doon sa asawa niya, sa ibang lalaki. So, hindi niya sinabi to, kunyari, sa kanyang asawa. Pinalabas niya, anak to ng asawa niya. Now, that is fraud na ground na pwede mo ring ipa-annul yung marriage. So, ano pa? Again, concealment, no, of having a sexually transmitted disease during the marriage. So, meron kang STD, meron kang AIDS, alright? Pero hindi mo, or sabihin natin yung mga STD na hindi nagagamot, like syphilis. Alam mo meron ka na to, okay? Pero hindi mo sinabi sa magiging asawa mo. And eventually, nalaman din. Siyempre, mahahawa yun eh. Yung asawa mo can file a petition for annulment based on fraud. Kasi nga, tinago mo to sa kanya. Alright? Next, ikaw pala ay addict. Or addict sa alak. Or addict sa drugs. Alright? Ngunit tinago mo to sa asawa mo. Eh, yung mapapangasawa mo naman, kahit amoy chiko ka na, hindi pa rin nagsuspecha na addict ka pala sa alak, eh, nagpakasal pa rin. This is fraud. Hindi yan pwede. no? Tinago mo. Kumbaga, nalinlang mo yung future spouse mo na ikaw pala ay addictus, chumochongi-chongi, talagang hindi pwede. Alright? Annulment ang kalalabasan ng kasal ninyo yan. Alright, ano pa ba? Pag tinago mo, eto, believe it or not, this is very common. This is very common. I don't know why. Tinago mo yung fact na ikaw ay homosexual. Alright? Nagpakasal ka pretending to be someone you're not. So, for example, ikaw dapat ay groom, pero feeling mo pala bride ka. At hindi mo sinabi ito sa partner mo na, uy, mas trip ko maging bride. O bride ka, mas trip mo maging groom. At hindi ito'y tinago mo sa mapapangasawa mo. That is fraud that may be a ground for annulment. Like the other grounds for annulment, yung fraud also prescribes. Okay? When? It prescribes within 5 years from your discovery of the fraud. So, kung ikaw ang biktima, hindi naman talagang victim to, let's just put it in quote-unquote, victim sa marriage na ganito. You have 5 years after finding out yung concealment to file an action for annulment. Okay, another ground for annulment is yung shotgun wedding. Alam niyo ba yung shotgun wedding? Yung kapag ang wedding ay merong force, threat, or intimidation. Yung sapilitang kasalan. No? Parang, for example, si daddy nalaman na buntis yung kanyang baby girl. Abay, tinutukan na ng barel ang boyfriend ni baby girl. At sinabing, pakasalan mo yung anak ko, kung hindi, papatayin kita. Yun. That is a ground for annulment. Why? Kasi, uulitin natin, importante sa marriage ang consent. Kapag ang consent ay wala, or kung ito ay defective, kumbaga, sapilitang ibinigay lamang, dahil takot, dahil napilitan, dahil merong threat, ground yan for annulment. Okay, ano pa ba? Okay. Another ground is when one or both of the parties are physically incapable of consummating the marriage. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng consummating a marriage? Okay. Consummating a marriage means having sex, right? Having sexual intercourse. Now, if one of the parties are physically incapable of having sexual intercourse, that is a ground to have the marriage annulled. And meron talaga mga kaso umabot pa sa Supreme Court. It's either walang lalaki, or masyadong maliit, or sometimes may physical defect yung sa babae, hindi si lalaki. Now, since hindi ma-consummate yung marriage, sabi ng batas, pwede kang magpa-annul. Now, ito, hindi na kailangan ng concealment. Like kanina, diba, sinabi natin, pag kinonceal mo yung fact na ikaw ay may sexually transmitted disease, that is a ground for annulment. But, kung hindi mo kinonceal at ikaw ay talagang merong serious na sexually transmitted disease, that's also a ground for having the marriage annulled. Okay? Now, it also prescribes within 5 years from after the marriage. Alright. Now, okay, ano yung effect na to? A marriage that is annulled becomes ineffective or terminated at the time it is annulled. Children will remain legitimate, and yung properties ng mag-asawa ay i-dissolve at i-deliver ang presumptive legitimes, ang mga mana sa mga tagapagmana. So, we'll go now to declaration of nullity of marriage. So, ano-ano ba itong mga void marriages ito sa ating batas. Okay. Number 1, marriages between minors. Next is marriages solemnized without a valid marriage license. Nung panahon, years ago, nauso yung tinatawag na quote-unquote secret marriages. Yung mga SM, makikita mo pa ito naka-advertise sa dyaryo, secret marriage, mga ganyan-ganyan. So, you call the number and then they will arrange na i-arrange na nila yung kasal ninyo. Nauso to sa mga mag-boyfriend and mag-girlfriend na nag-aaral pa, gusto nang mag-asawa. No? So, someone arranges it, papalabasin, mayroong marriage license and everything. And then lalabas na lang na meron kang marriage certificate. Years after, it is discovered fake pala yung marriage license. So, yun, void yung marriage nila. Right? So, nauso to nun. Diba ko lang meron pang SM ngayon. Meron pa ba? Alright. Next is marriages solemnized by persons without any authority. So, yung mga kinasal na mga walang authority, yung solemnizing officer, that's void. But, ito importante but if the parties, if the couple, in good faith, believe na may authority, yung taong yun na magkasal, valid yung marriage. Next is incestuous marriage. Ito common sense na lang. Natural. Okay? Incest is contrary to public morals and public decency. Next is bigamous and polygamous marriages. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng bigamous and polygamous marriages? Alright. Bigamous means may previous marriage. From the prefix na bigamous. So, ibig sabihin yan, nagpakasal ang isa, may asawa pa pala. So, that makes the marriage bigamous and being contrary to morals and customs and policy, it is void. Kung yung bigamous ay void, di lalo na yung polygamous. Polygamous, ibig sabihin, more than one ang previous valid marriage. So, all the succeeding marriages from the very first valid marriage are void. Next, ito ang itong pinakasikat. I don't know why. Alright? Ito yung ginagamit or favorite gamitin ng mga parties na hindi makahanap ng ground na pagpapawalang bisa ng kasal nila. And you know what this is? Of course, I'm sure you know it's psychological incapacity. Ito, pag-uusapan natin to in depth in another episode. I-discuss natin ano ba talaga ang psychological incapacity. So, psychological incapacity to perform the essential obligations of marriage. Okay? Sabi ng batas, if one or both of the parties suffer from psychological incapacity to perform the essential obligations of marriage, that marriage is void. Alright? Parang ang dali intindihan, pero napakasalimuot po na itong ground na to. It will require an episode or more just to discuss this. Alright? Next is void marriages by reason of public policy. And the last ground is failure to comply with the registration requirement, declaring your previous marriage void or annulling the previous marriage. Kasi ganito po yan, when your marriage is declared void or if your marriage is annulled, there is a decree issued by the court. And yung decision po and yung decree, kailangan po ipa-record nyo yan. Kailangan ipa-register nyo yan sa local civil registrar at sa PSA. Okay? Hindi pa po kayo pwedeng mag-asawa hanggat hindi nyo to ginagawa. Right. Now, aside from yung recording and registration po na to, now, meron pa yung dissolution of properties and distribution of the legitimes to the presumptive heirs. Now, kung hindi nyo po nagawa ito at masyado kayong excited, nagpakasal kaagad kayo, yung second marriage nyo na yun, kahit may decree of annulment or declaration of nullity kayo, yung second na kasal na yun, void. Alright? But, the children remain legitimate. Okay. Now, may prescription ba ang declaration of nullity of marriage? Well, wala po. For as long as both of the parties are alive, you can file a declaration of nullity of marriage. Unlike yung annulment, may prescriptive periods. There are certain periods within which to bring the action. Sa declaration of nullity, wala. So, for as long as both parties are alive, you can still file. So, there you go. The differences between annulment and declaration of nullity of marriage. So, sa next episodes ng series na to, sa Usapang Kasalan, we will be discussing about psychological incapacity and then yung mga scams sa pagpapa-annul ng kasal para alam ninyo at para maiwasan din ninyo. So until then, thank you again for watching this episode. Please take care. Tumataas na naman ang number of COVID cases natin, so please celebrate responsibly this coming holidays. So once again, thank you very much. See you next time.